So if you've never heard of Make.com or just want to start with Make.com, you're in the right place. In this video, I'll go over the basics and fundamentals of automating with Make.com so that by the end, you truly understand the building blocks and fundamentals of automating with Make.com so that you can either start making something online or you can build systems for your own business. So let's talk about it. All right, so what is Make.com? Make.com is just a platform that allows you to create automations, create workflows that run automatically without any code. And let me show you a few examples to drive this idea home. So the first one I want to show you is this simple Gmail to Google Drive automation. Now, instead of every single time going into the Gmail, opening up the email, downloading an attachment, and then uploading to the Google Drive, you could have an automation that does everything for you. All right. So whenever there's a new email, it downloads all the attachments and then uploads everything into Google Drive. All right. Another example is automating Instagram reply comments. All right. So whenever there's a new comment on the post, instead of manually replying every single time yourself, you will have a simple automation that does that for you. And right now, this is just a two-step automation with probably a static reply, but you can integrate AI into this, right? So that the replies are different. The AI can detect if the comments is negative or positive, things like that you can easily do with Make.com. And that's essentially it. With Make.com, you can offload your workload. And if you have a lot of processes that you can easily define step by step, we can easily transfer that into a workflow in Make.com so that it does that for you automatically. Now, before I jump in, into the platform itself and start talking about more technical details, I want to talk about the pricing real quick. Now, Make.com is very generous with a free plan that has thousands of operations every single month, which is more than enough for you to try it out, right? Play around Make.com, try to build some prototypes of your systems. But this is also very good for new clients. If you want to work with clients and build automations for clients, this is an easy way to just get them, in the door, right? You can just say, hey, there's a free plan. Let's build a prototype so that you can see the value, and you can really deliver a lot of value even on the free plan because it offers you thousands of operations a month, which is more than enough to try a lot of things out. And it's not written here, but also it gives you 2 active scenarios, which again, just for MVP, just for showing the value, is more than enough, right? And then once the client, or once you see the potential in the automation, you can easily upgrade to Core, which is $9 a month for 10,000 operations. And that's more than enough for like 80-90% of cases. For most of my clients, they're just on the Core plan because it's more than enough. You have unlimited scenarios, you have 10,000 operations. If you're smart about that, you can build fairly complex systems while still being on this Core plan. All right. Okay, that was about the pricing. Now, let's really dive into the automation itself and let's understand the building blocks of automation before we jump into Make.com. Right, so here we are in the Miro design dashboard where I want to really show you guys the high-level overview of the automating process itself so that we truly understand the building blocks before we jump into Make.com for implementation. Now, just a side note, for every single client that I work with or every single system that I want to build for myself, I always start with the design because essentially to build good automating processes, you have to have a good defined process. So either SOP and or defined steps of process clearly outlined somewhere, right? It can be a piece of paper, it can be Miro, right, that I'm using right now. Basically any platform that allows you to map out processes so that you know what happens when, and you see the automation before you actually implement anything. And it's very good because sometimes you discover, or sometimes you find out that maybe automation is not easy to build, right? Maybe the work you would put into this automation would not give you that much benefits, right? So the ratio work to value is not that great. Or you discover that maybe there are some other areas that can be automated instead. So that's just a side note. Always design before jumping straight into implementation. Now, let's talk about this. So you see on the left side, we have 2 types of triggers. The first one is polling or time triggers. And essentially trigger is just a way for the automation to know when to start the process. And when it comes to time triggers, it just sounds exactly how it sounds like. Essentially, the automation that has time triggers would get triggered on a timely basis. So either every day at 8 a.m. or it can be once a week. It could be every Monday. It could be every 15 minutes, every hour. Really depends on how often, how regular you want this automation to be. Right. So this is very useful for things that you know that will happen, right? That are happening on a regular basis. So either every single day in the morning, you want to probably maybe send email to the team, or once a month, you want to get a report data sent to you, right? Just to review the past month, the performance, things like that. So those are the time triggers. And down here we have instant triggers. And these types of triggers are waiting for a certain type of an event. All right. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that we want to trigger this workflow whenever a new email comes to the inbox. And this you can't really control. You don't know when you will get emails, how often you will get emails. So having a time trigger for this doesn't make much sense. All right. And that's why we want instant triggers. Not only that, instant triggers trigger the workflow instantly after an event happens. So as soon as you get an email into the inbox, this automation will trigger itself, okay? And that's the difference between time triggers and instant triggers. Now, just a side note, instant triggers are very good because whenever an event comes in, the workflow will get automatically executed. And for 95% of times, you want to use instant triggers, all right? Because you can control it. It's more efficient when it comes to saving operations. Because with the time triggers, you can imagine that you can easily spend a lot of operations when you run an automation that triggers itself every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes, right? So that's why for most of the times, you want to use instant triggers wherever possible, all right? Now, those are the triggers. Let's talk about, the next nodes. And I actually forgot to mention this. So every one of these nodes, rectangles, in make.com, they're called modules. And essentially, whenever you use a module in a workflow, it counts as one operation. So if I just delete this for a minute, if we have this simple workflow with 3 rectangles or 3 modules, whenever this runs, make.com would take 3 operations from your balance. All right. So each rectangle is a module in make.com. So that's something that I forgot to mention. And let's talk about other modules than triggers. So we have, apart from triggers, we then have modules that do things, that are doing something, right? Action modules. So back in the example of incoming emails. So let's take, I'm just gonna rename this when email comes to inbox. I'll delete this after all. So we have the trigger, all right, when email comes to inbox, and then we have modules that we want to perform some types of action. So in this case, let's have an example of whenever a new email comes in, let's analyze with GPT. So essentially, whenever an email comes in, we want to analyze the body of the email, the text of the email with a GPT, and then we want to reply back, right? And this is essentially a simple automation just here sketched out on Miro that we can then easily go into make.com and implement that, right? And essentially, if you can draw the process on a Miro board, you are good to go, all right? Implementing in make.com is not that hard, right? The hard part is kind of making sure that the steps are well defined, what to do in what cases, right? Because here, for example, you can add a bit more logic before actually feeding it into the GPT and replying. You can first check who is this email coming from, right? You can have another module, and here it's kind of a filter module that you only want to filter emails that are coming from, for instance, this customer or these types of senders, right? So you can start building on top of it and you can iterate on that and build very complex systems that can really help save time and make money, things like that. All right, so now that we understand the automation process, the thinking, the behind building automations and designing automations, let's design a simple automation for publishing content that we will then build together step by step. So I'm just gonna copy this over so that I don't have to do it again. And what I want to build with you guys today is a simple social media automation that takes content from a database, let's say Google Sheets, and then it automatically posts this content to X, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Okay, so here I want to post every day, so I'll just use a time-based trigger, every day at like 9 a.m. or so. We want to trigger this workflow, and what we want to do is first we'll have a Google Sheets full of posts, right? And essentially I want to get all posts with today's date, right? I don't want to post dates that are not scheduled for today. So I'll first get all posts with today's date from Google Sheets, right? Then what I want to do is take those, take the rows, take the data that we get from the Google Sheets, and I want to filter the posting, right? Some of the posts are meant for Facebook, some of the posts are meant for LinkedIn. So here we want a basic filter based on the available platform. So let's go platform filtering. And here then I want to post to different platforms based on the selected platform. All right, so here is going to be post to Facebook, post to LinkedIn, and post to X. All right, and that's essentially it. So this super simple automation triggers itself every day at 9 a.m. It takes all the posts that are due, that are meant to be posted today, and then based on the selected platforms, it will then post it to the correct one. Okay, this is super simple automation. Now let's jump into make.com and start implementing. Okay, so let me open up the make.com, and if you create an account, it's super simple. This is a dashboard. Basically here you can see the plan, the use operations, monthly operations available, the balance, the price, and also here you can see the history of the operations. Here the purple ones are the operations, meaning how many modules, right? If you remember how many modules, how many rectangles you're using in those workflows. And when it comes to data transfer, you don't really have to stress about that, because for 99% of the times, unless you're working with a ton of data or very heavy media files like long videos or a lot of images, then you don't need to stress about the data transfer. But essentially the data transfer is monitoring how much data you are transferring through the workflows, right? So if you had a very heavy data workflow, like when I upload a video to Google Drive, it will download that video, it will transcribe that video, and then it will repurpose the content, for example, or it will post to YouTube for me, then this is a heavy data workflow, and those 5 gigabytes can get used up pretty quickly, right? If you have like long videos, like a video can easily take 1 gigabyte, 2 gigabytes, depending on the quality, right? So that's something to keep in mind. But for most of the cases, the data transfer limit is very generous. You will almost never hit that, as I said, unless you work with heavy data or heavy media files. Okay, so here there's not much. The most important thing right now, especially if you want to test out and get more hands-on experience, is in the scenarios tab in the left menu. Okay, you click scenarios, and here you will not have like any scenarios since it's a new account. But essentially, what I like to do first is create a folder, right? So create a folder to kind of systematize, structure the workflows a little bit. And then once you create a new folder, you're going to create a new scenario over here. Perfect. So this is the canvas where you're going to design the automation. So this is where the design, when we did in Miro, comes to play. As you can see, we have clearly defined steps, clearly defined modules, and now it's really a matter of fact mapping this design into the actual workflow in Make.com. So the first thing that we need to do is every day at 9 a.m., okay, we want to get all the posts with today's date from Google Sheets. And to do that, we need to first set up the Google Sheets, all right, to get data from. So here I prepared a simple setup, and essentially we have post date, which is a date where the post should go live. We have content. I already prepared some of the content. Let's wrap this a little bit, right? And also we have platforms. We have Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and we can either select only a few like Facebook, LinkedIn, or we can, in my case, I want to post to all of the platforms, so I'm going to select all of the platforms. And then we have a check mark that just helps us quickly see if it was published or not. And that's essentially it. So now that we have the Google Sheets set up, let's continue. So we want to first get all the posts with today's date, all right? So in Make.com, I'm going to add a new module, right? Add a new rectangle, essentially. And I will search for Google Sheets. We can either, search by scrolling, or we can search for, Google Sheets. And I'm going to click this. And here in that Google Sheets module, I have a lot more functionalities. In our case, we want to search and get rows. So I'm going to go search rows, all right? And then I need to select which one I want to work with. And this is a social media automation Google Sheet. So I'm going to copy paste, find that. We want to monitor the sheet 1, right? As you can see down here, there's a sheet 1. And here we want to select all the columns, A to CZ, and we need to add a filter. If I leave this as is, it would return all the rows, but that's not what we want, right? We want to get only rows with today's date. So what I'm going to do is I want to filter posts where the post date or column A equals to today's date. Okay, how do I do that? Well, in Make.com, we can have methods and functions that can help us with that. So here in the date and time section, I'm going to select format date. And essentially what it does is it just formats the date so that it matches a particular pattern. All right. And as you can see, the date has a pattern of month, day, and then year, right? So we want to match that pattern as well. So I'm going to go format date. And in this function, we can see that it takes two inputs. The first one is the actual time, all right, actual date. And the second one is basically the format of that date. If I can just copy it so that I don't have to. Okay, I can't. Anyway, to get the time, we can easily use this variable now, which would use the today's date. And then to format it, as I said, I want month slash date slash year, which are 4 numbers. All right, and that's essentially it. So now, if it's working, we can run it. If I can click this, and as you can see, we have an output, which is in our case, it's a row. So one bundle means one row, and it successfully fetched the post that we wanted. To test this further, I can just do another one, let's say on 27th, with a different content, different platforms, and let me see if it can still only fetch that one. Okay, as you can see, we still only have that one post, which is today, 25th of February, right, which is correct. And this one is working. So the first step is done. So this step is done. I'm going to mark it green. And what about every day at 9 a.m.? Now, here you can see that in that first module, there's a clock. And if you click it, you can select this to run scenarios at either regular intervals, once every day, things like that. So in my case, I want every day. And my time is going to be 9 a.m. Right? And that's it. So we have every day at 9 a.m. and we have the first step ready, which takes all the posts with today's date. So this is also done, right? Now, what we need next is we need to filter the platforms, and based on a selected platform, we need to post to each platform. So first, let's just keep it simple, all right? Let's just take that we want to post to Facebook every single time. So to do that, I'm gonna add another module, and in this case, I'll go with Facebook. Facebook pages. There's a create a post. All right. First, you need to create a connection. I totally forgot to mention that. But essentially, in this case, adding a connection is super simple. You just add a connection, sign in with Google, which redirects you to a login page. Once you log in, the connection is established. Super simple. With Facebook, it's the same thing. You save this, it redirects you to another page. You log in, and then you're good to go, essentially. Now, back to the Facebook example. So once you create a connection, you select the page. In my case, it's Michael Pham, and then you get the message, which is the post content. And as you can see, when I click the message, I see on the right side we have different variables. And this data is essentially data that came from the previous module. All right. And what do we want? Well, we want the content, which is column B. And we can see here, content B, and I just drag it over and I save this. And essentially, we have a super simple automation that triggers every day at 9 a.m., pulls all the rows, all the content, where the post date equals to the day's date, and then it just creates a post to Facebook. Super simple. How cool is that? Now, we basically, right now, we have a super simple automation where we just skipped this part and went straight to the Facebook posting, right? But since we have, these platforms included, let's build that as well. And we know how to post to Facebook, okay? So I'm gonna go with green. Okay, so how do we implement the filtering, all right? So if I open up this bubble, right, I can see the data again that we got from Google Sheets. And we have the, column A, column B, and what we're interested in is the column C, right? Because you can see we have all the platforms in a string or in a text separated by a comma, okay? And let's, use that to our advantage. So I'm gonna disconnect, so right click, unlink. I'm gonna just prepare this node here. And for this filtering, we're gonna use a module called router. And essentially a router just routes the flow based on the condition, right? So right now, if I leave it as is, we see there's a first path, there's a second path. And if I run this as is, it would go this way. It would first get that Google Sheet, it will then route it to the first path. And then once it finishes the first path, it will then route it to the second path, right? So since there are no conditions, it will run through all the branches. So let's fix that. First, I'm just gonna get that Facebook page ready. And let's get other platforms, social media modules ready as well. So we have LinkedIn. So again, I'll click LinkedIn. We want to create a text post. Again, to add a connection, you just do LinkedIn, you save, and then it redirects you to log in. Once you log in, the connection will be established. And then in the content, again, we're gonna select the content, right? Again, from the previous module, which is Google Sheets. I'm just gonna drag it in. Media type, I'm a bit empty. I don't wanna create articles. I want to create a simple post. Main feed, public. I save this. And lastly, let's click a plus button here. Add another module X or Twitter. And then I want to create a post. Again, creating connection. Here, as you can see, there's different types of connection. It's not redirecting you to a login page where you can log in, but it wants a client ID and a client secret. Now, to do that, you would need to go to the Twitter dev platform, I think. But I don't want to go too much into details. You can easily just type, make.com Twitter API, right? And here it will guide you through the process, basically. Okay, the documentation. If you want to build automations either for yourself or clients, get used to going through documentations, because you will not know every single platform, right? So documentation is very something that you should rely on. So once you get the client ID, client secret, establish a connection. Or if you want to make it easy, don't include X, right? Just use LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, other social media. But once you have that simple process, again, we get that content, a variable, we place it in, and we are done. I'm gonna save this. And as you can see right now, if you remember, there are no conditions, and the router really just routes to every single branch automatically. So if I run this, even if I specify platforms, like I only want to post to X, there's no logic that tells this automation to do that. Right now, it would just post it to every single platform. So let's add the condition. And again, for that, we're going to use that C column, which is platforms. And as you can see, if I select Facebook, LinkedIn, X, I have it nicely here stacked in a text. And I can easily create a condition like this. So in the first branch, I'm going to name this condition is Facebook. And what I want to compare, what's the condition here? Well, the condition is when the platform, right, which is a text, Facebook, comma, LinkedIn, comma, X, and I'm going to use an operator contains. So when this contains Facebook, all right, when the platforms contains text Facebook, I know I want to post to Facebook. So that's a condition number one. And the same thing we're going to apply to all the different platforms. So again, I'm going to slide over the not content, but platforms, right? When platforms contains, this time it's going to be LinkedIn. And then lastly, I want to go is X. And again, platforms contains X, right? I'm gonna save this. As you can see, now it will correctly route it to that social media module based on the selected platforms, right? So if I don't select any platforms, let's say, right, and I run this, as you can see, this successfully ran, right? We fetched the correct post, but the rest of the workflows, as you can see, there are zero matches, right? Here we can see that platform was empty, so it doesn't contain Facebook. Again, empty, doesn't contain LinkedIn, and again, we see that doesn't contain X. So it didn't route to any of these platforms. Now, if I select Facebook and LinkedIn, and I run this, as you can see, now, since it contained Facebook, it will go to the Facebook module. It's gonna take a while for the posting. Let's give it a minute. Perfect. And then because it also contained LinkedIn, it went to LinkedIn as well. And it didn't contain X, so it didn't perform that action. So if I go into onto Facebook, let's see if I can do that. And let's go into posts. And as you can see, just now I posted this post, right? And if I go over to LinkedIn, let me check the posts. And as you can see, if I go show all posts, I'm gonna have this post right here, right? So it successfully posted this content for me based on this Google Sheet. And let's finish it off with the X as well. So I'm gonna unclick those platforms and then just select X, and then I trigger this automation. And as you can see, it went to the X, and then I can just open my X account, click profile, go to the post, and just now this is the exact post that I wanted to get posted. All right, and that's essentially it. Right now, oh, okay. You are not allowed to create a tweet with duplicate content. All right, luckily I didn't create another one. It was my bad. I accidentally pressed the play or trigger again. But now, since we know that it's working, we can just turn it on. Okay, we save. And now this workflow will now run automatically every single day at 9 a.m. in the morning. And then it will fetch all the posts that has the today's date, and then it will post that based on the platforms. So what this means is that you can easily create more posts, right? Oh, and we forgot the published tick, right? Actually, that was my bad. So the published tick, let me go here. Let me update a row. And here we want the same thing. We want to get the social media automation. Sheet name is going to be sheet 1. Row number, we'll get the row number from our first Google Sheet module. Right, you can see the row number is 2 from our testing data. So I'm gonna go here, but if the post in question is on row 10, this row number variable will return 10, right? So we can easily get these. And then on the published, okay, we see that it was false, so I'm gonna go to true, right? So published is gonna go true. I'm gonna go yes. I'm gonna go yes. And for testing purposes, I will just unselect all platforms since I don't want to, make duplicates. And I run this one more time. Right, and as you can see, this was taked, and here we see it's published. All right, so whenever this runs, this take is just indicating you that for the day it was ran. Okay, I'm just gonna click back here because that's for the testing purposes. And now that's essentially it. You have a simple Google Sheets database where you can schedule content beforehand. You select the post date when you want this to go live, select the platforms, and then just wait for the automation to trigger, which is every day at 9 a.m. And that's it. With this, hopefully you kind of understand more of Make.com, the basics, because what I want you to understand is that as long as you understand the higher level concept or the main idea behind automation, right, the mapping process, setting it up, and then mapping out into the Make.com workflow, you're good to go. All right. And as you can see, actually, we didn't spend that much time implementing since we had the process like mapped out pretty nicely. And that's something that stuck with me when working with clients, is that the design is very, very important, because not only are you like on the same page with the client, not only are you actually able to solve problems before they even happen, but when it comes to implementation, it's much, much easier and faster once you have all the things mapped out, right? So that's a very good rule to follow, to always design and then implement. And this will make your life easier, and easier implementation, things like that. So with that, if hopefully you learn something new, hopefully now you see more potential with automation. I'm sure right now you have ideas firing in your brain, what you can do with this, what you can build with this, right? Maybe if you want to get clients and start earning money with Make.com, that's totally possible. There's a very good market right now. It's more and more businesses are actually seeking out this type of service, and hopefully you learn something new. If you like this video, give it a like for me, subscribe for more similar content, or if you want to go deeper into specific topics, comment down below. I'll go through every single comment, so let's connect. And if you want to learn more about automation and how to maybe land clients, make some money, check out my Skool community, where I share my experiences, share my pitfalls, bad decisions, mistakes, but also I share my processes, my thinking, discoveries, tips and tricks, and all the good stuff. So see you there.